Thanks for making the Locked On Ole Miss podcast your first listen every day. We're free and available wherever you get your podcast, including YouTube. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every single day. Hello, I'm Stephen Willis from the Locked On Ole Miss podcast, and I'm joined by Chris Childers, the show pony, Childers Radio from, is it Full Ride?
Yep, Full Ride.
On SiriusXM, and he just starting a new NASCAR show on SiriusXM as well. What about that show, man?
Yeah, just started this past Wednesday. It's called Backstretch Banner with RFK Racing, which is really cool because I get to associate with a race team, which is a lot of fun. So it's a lot of fun rooting for the 6 and the 17 on the weekends and getting to talk to those guys about the race. We just did Daytona with Chris Buescher. It's going to be airing on Racing America at 9:00 Eastern on Sling and Tubi and all that stuff. So keeping busy with college football and basketball and racing.
Man, that's awesome stuff. We've come a long way since Mornings with Bill King and Rivals Radio. A lot of water's flown under that
Rivals Radio. That's how Bill
coming at you,
right?
Yeah, it was like, hello, Louisville Cardinal fans.
Yes. God bless them.
Oh, it's fantastic. Yeah, we're just sitting in that room and all that's going on.
Yeah.
But anyway, everybody wants to hear about Ole Miss and the playoff in 2024, so let's give them that. What is the national perspective? I will say, for lack of a better word, you sit right next to Rick Neuheisel, even though I know that you're doing that remotely. So I'm sure this conversation has come up. Ole Miss is kind of the it team for 2024, are they not?
Yeah, they're the it team, big time. Kiffin's got so much momentum. They've done an amazing job in the transfer portal, acquiring talent. The roster they have coming back is really sexy. They're a popular playoff pick. Here's what I think the playoff does. I think the playoff really is going to legitimize programs like Mississippi. And I think Penn State's going to be kind of in this breath as well. But, for the longest time, there was kind of a hierarchy where, Bama, Georgia, teams like that, LSU and the SEC would win the big prizes. In the Big Ten, you'd have Ohio State, Michigan. But I think with the expansion of the playoff and the fact that we're going to decide things on an actual field and do it head-to-head, for a team like Ole Miss, who you watch them play, and last year they gained a lot of momentum down the stretch of the season. They got redemption in the Egg Bowl and the whole thing. That, to me, you look at that Ole Miss team, put them in a win in advance, lose and go home format, and why don't they have a chance to win it all? I think they're going to do really well in that kind of format, and I think the 12-team playoff just kind of takes an Ole Miss program and makes it a little bigger, if that makes sense. I think it becomes more prestigious. I think it becomes more of a power player in the national landscape. It's a program that's willing to commit. It's obviously a program that has strong NIL, has strong commitment from the state of Mississippi. People don't realize there's some pretty wealthy dudes that will throw their money around if they feel like their investment is going somewhere. And we know those names in the state of Mississippi. Certainly there's some, pretty prominent businessmen. And I think those guys have done a hell of a job helping Lane. They're obviously getting a great return based on the elevation of the program up to this point. But I honestly kind of would say I would be shocked if they're not in the 12-team playoff. I really would, based on everything, the way it's lining up.
Yeah, and as you can imagine, the Locked On Ole Miss podcast, we're pretty much talking about this nearly every day. So Ole Miss fans, they know exactly what I feel about Ole Miss and their playoff odds. But what position on Ole Miss's team that you just think of, what is the make or break position? If Ole Miss is going to go as far as they can go, where should Ole Miss fans be looking?
Well, I think it's an easy answer. And we've seen progress on that side of the football, but it's just, to me, it's the secondary. To me, it's the defense. To me, it's up front, stopping the run. It's creating a pass rush. It's becoming a lead on the line of scrimmage. That's the difference to me. Because we know this team's going to have great skill players. Ole Miss has proven that. Lane Kiffin's proven that. Big-time receivers, big-time running backs, big-time quarterbacks. They're going to put up numbers. They're going to thrive. They're going to be successful. and they're going to get people talking about them on Monday morning. That's what they've done. The difference between good teams and great teams is who you are on the line of scrimmage. If you can create a pass rush effectively, that will improve your secondary's performance tenfold. It's not rocket science. It's football 101. But if you can effectively attack the quarterback in this league, and it's hard because there's great offensive linemen all across the board. There's guys that are going to go in the first round of the draft and probably pretty early in the first round of the draft that you're going up against at left and right tackle. But if you get to the quarterback and you can effectively defend the pass at a high level and put that together with the offense that we can just kind of guarantee, now we're looking at a team that I think isn't just the playoff team. They're a team that can win it all. But it's all about the line of scrimmage. To me, you're only as good as your pass rush.
Yeah, and we're going to change the subject. One of my lukewarm takes that I talk about on my show is the not so subtle war that has developed between Fox and ESPN and Disney for the college football playoff.
Oh, yeah.
And a couple of weeks ago, it came out that ESPN had extended it to 2030, and everybody's like, whoa, pump your brakes on that. We haven't actually agreed. And then we hear that they're thinking about expanding a playoff even before it's happened and to 14 or 16 teams. And it got me thinking, I think the situation of this deal is they're trying to get enough inventory to where they can bring Fox to the table and have a CBS versus Fox type setup in the college football playoff. What do you think, and how do you think this is going to work moving forward?
Yeah, I think you're right. I think it's going to become North versus South. I think it's going to become Big Ten versus the SEC. The fact that they're talking about expanding already is just the Big Ten and the SEC throwing around their weight. They have come together. Petiti and Sankey said this publicly. They have formed a partnership. I think that partnership is essentially they're going to run the sport. They're going to direct people where this thing's going to go, and they're going to create more opportunities for themselves. Because the bottom line is this. We have 2 power leagues. We do not have a power 5 anymore. We don't even have a power 4. The ACC and the Big 12 are not on equal footing with the SEC and the Big 10. They're not financially. They're not from a competitive standpoint. They're just not. So I look at them more, and just I'll use the term because it's a known term, but they feel more group of 5-y than they do power, because there's 2 power leagues. So if you are one of the power leagues, you're a have. Even Vanderbilt right now, the luckiest team in the world, is a have, because they're on the right side of this, because they're going to be in a good position. My biggest dream and wish, if we go to the 2 power leagues, is that we create the promotion and relegation system to give access to people. And I wish we could do that. And I think it would be great if we, in fact, went to 2 leagues. But what they're doing here is they're creating, I agree, it's network versus network. Mm-hmm. And it's going to become a NFC, AFC. You might have a Big 12 automatic qualifier that's going to get destroyed, or a ACC automatic qualifier, or a Sun Belt one given year, or whatever the hell it is. But the fact of the matter is, we know who the power leagues are. It's going to feel like AFC, NFC. It's going to feel like North versus South. And I think because of that, it's going to be good for college football. I think that you know it as well as I do. And you're from the South. I'm from the North. There is still a tension between both parts of the country. If you're from the North, you really don't respect people from the South. You don't, you just don't. It's just ingrained in who you are. There's only a snobbery. Right, wrong, or indifferent, it happens, and I've seen it a million times. When I moved to the South and I started talking with a little twang, and I'd go back home to Chicago, they'd give me hell. And you know damn well, the Southern people, those damn Yankees, those arrogant, and maybe rightfully so. But to me, when you create that, that's good for interest. That's good when I want to see the Northern champion versus the Southern champion. Give me that at the end of the year. And if the South dominates all the time, so be it. But I think that would be so much better for interest than Alabama, LSU at the end of the season, or Ole Miss and Georgia at the end of the season. I think that geographical thing that we could do would be great for the game. it would kind of make this whole development that we, I call it college football puberty. It would make it feel better. It would make it feel like we got somewhere.
In this whole thing, we're talking about all this stuff. Conference championship games have to go away, right?
Gotta go away.
It just because right now it's the equivalent of having an AFC East championship game.
Yeah, it's pointless.
Yeah,
it's absolutely pointless, and they're money grabs right now. I mean, that's all they are. They're absolute money. It's like a conference tournament in basketball that's coming up in Nashville for the SEC. Complete and utter money grab. Mm-hmm. Pointless. Most teams don't care. If you're already in the tournament, excuse me, you have no interest in being there. Sorry, you have no interest in being there anyway. Mm-hmm. It's that time of the year, dude. It's getting over the cold into allergy season. It's one of those deals. But for me, complete money grab. They'll understand that. And now that we have these massive leagues, we don't need a conference title game. We just don't need it.
Yeah. And especially if you're fighting to, I think this college football playoff, and we talked about it earlier, I think if it expands to 16, that benefits Ole Miss. If it expands to 24, like FCS, that benefits Ole Miss as well. And I think
it's going to benefit the SEC no matter what if it gets bigger, because our league's too good.
Yeah. And you look at the 14 playoff, that benefit LSU, Georgia, and Alabama. And we saw that. There's a 10-year sample size of that happening. And teams were able to recruit in a small number to that playoff. And so you had Clemson versus Alabama seemingly every year, and that destroyed parity. Well, they expanded the playoff, which means 25 teams can recruit to the playoff. NIL means that you have a different recruiting base to pull from that grabs some different schools. All of a sudden, A&M and Texas, they become major players more so than they were. And you have the transfer portal, which means that these power programs cannot stockpile talent. And you have a situation to where Alabama's second team is better than anybody else's they're playing's first team. That second team is going to move and disperse around the country, and those other teams are going to get better. Alabama's going to get a little bit worse, and you have a little bit of parity that is actually developing. So all the headaches that everybody's talking about, just remember, we are heading down the road to parity.
We are, and thank God. Because think of the last 10 years we had before we went to NIL and portal and it evened things out a little bit. It was boring as hell. I mean, you and I could have talked in August and legitimately picked the 4 teams for the playoff. At least 3. At least 3. And we would have gotten damn close, right?
We probably did. Sitting in that office in Brentwood. Yeah, we were right more than we were wrong.
Predictable, boring. Yeah. We needed something. We needed a kick in the ass. It's uncomfortable. Mm-hmm. It's weird. It's different. None of us like change. And we've gone through not a change, a tornado of change. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's not like we're having a little bit. We've altered everything from playoff to roster management to, everything. The calendar, it's completely and utterly unrecognizable from where it was when college football had its last season before the pandemic. Everything has changed since then. Everything. And I bring up the pandemic. The pandemic is kind of a time reference, but it really has to do with the Alston case ruling. It was June 21st, 2021. That's the day that the music died. And things changed. And parity then became real.
Yeah. And you have an interesting situation. Let's change the subject just a little bit. They're talking about the early signing day and potentially moving that to the week before the championship games.
So stupid.
I have been an advocate of it. If you want to clean up the calendar, move the signing day period to August for high school players. They do all that for every other sport. They just don't do it for football. And that would allow the transfer portal to go on and it would declutter what's going on. But here's the issue that I think is happening with that one. Texas high school coaches are against it. Do you know why they're against it?
Why?
If a kid signs in August, all of a sudden he might opt out of his senior year because he's already signed his scholarship. And they are, the Friday night lights type stuff. Yeah. And it's like a trickle down thing where we think about college sports. So the SEC is like saying, okay, let's move it to before the championship game, before the portal opens up. And maybe that would help a little bit. But in the end of the day, that's still kind of silly because you're like 3 or 4 weeks away from state championship games in Texas, I think.
It's so dumb. Here's a novel concept. Ready? Ready for this? The first Wednesday in February. How about that?
Yeah.
How about we just go back to the way it was? Because this is so dumb. Putting signing day before the conference championships, that is the last thing that somebody who is in a conference championship game wants to have to deal with the Wednesday before they're trying to game plan to get to the playoff. That's what we're saying. If you're in a conference championship game and you're one win from the playoff, guess what? You have to worry about your future right now, right before the game. That's ridiculous. That would be like having the NFL draft the week before the first week of the playoffs. GMs and coaches would say, you're nuts. What are you doing to us? August is fine. The problem is the roster's changed so damn much. There's so many opt-outs. There's so many poor. I mean, you don't even know who's on the team when you commit anymore if you do it in August. So I'm like, hey, that first Wednesday in February is just fine to me. Let's go back to the way that it was.
Yeah, and you talk about conference championship games. This is the thing that people are going to have to deal with. If you win the conference championship game, if you're in the SEC, you're going to get a bye for the playoff. I mean, that's bar none. If you lose it, you might miss the playoffs. That extra game could be what knocks you completely out of the playoffs. And that is one of those, like, it's not really a proportional win and risk type situation that conferences are going to go in there. That conference championship game is literally going to cost somebody a playoff game.
It's going to, and people are going to be pissed when it happens. And to me, the conference championship games are flat out money grabs, and leagues will think twice about it if it keeps them out of being in the playoff. But the fact that we're doing signing day around it, how do you think that's a good idea? Who the hell said, here's what's going to declutter everything? Let's do it the week of the conference championships. That makes sense. That's dumber than doing it right where it is now around Christmas.
You know, let's be real about something. The bowl season and everything, the NFL and opt-outs and stuff has affected the college game, especially that time of year. And they do so without regard at all for the college game of what's going on. Why can't college sports just, okay, you might have a player opt out in Texas. Fine. That's not my problem. That's your issue. We're not going to import your problems because we need to do something that makes a little bit of sense for us, because we're having an exodus of coaches get out because the workload is just absolutely astronomical at the moment. And we have to take care of ourselves. We're sorry that you're going to be without a running back for 4 weeks. We're my bad about that. Hey, that's rough, but we got to do what we got to do.
100%. Got to do what you got to do. And isn't it just wild? I mean, I said this morning on Full Ride with Rick. I said, you know, as we sit here today in February, everything's still normal-ish. Like the leagues haven't changed yet. But come the end of baseball season, Cal and Stanford are going to be in the ACC. Texas and Oklahoma are going to be in our league. USC and UCLA and Oregon and Washington are going to be in the Big Ten. And it's almost like I'm ready to breathe into a paper bag. Like I feel okay now, but when it's real, I don't know how I'm going to function.
Yeah.
It's weird.
It's bizarre. And especially the Cal and Stanford in the ACC that's the one that kind of blows my mind. And you forget about SMU. They're in that category too. And
they paid their entire freight.
Yeah.
They're not
it's like
any TV money from that. It's crazy.
Yeah. It's like, think about what that says. Okay. We're willing to go into the hole so much to be relevant because we know that the American Athletic Conference does not have a future. That is such a big statement in college football. Anyway,
that's where we're at.
What surprises are you watching for national in 2024 outside the SEC?
Well, just how these leagues look. I mean, we have schedules that we've never seen before. So, you know, I was looking at Michigan's schedule, and they're the reigning defending champions, and it's brutal. Like, it's a brutal road to get to the playoff again for them. You've added Oregon, you've added Washington, you've added not Ohio State, you've added USC and UCLA. So all of a sudden, that league, how does that look? Does Ohio State still retain the favorite status? I think they're, the favorite without Jim Harbaugh at Michigan. Or does USC magically come in and find a defense now? And is it Washington or Oregon? Who the hell knows how that's going to look? How does Texas and Oklahoma transition? Do they compete for a championship right away? Does Texas pick up where it left off, or do they fall back? I mean, there's a lot of questions about next year that it just looks so different. And I think that's the thing. My biggest, surprise is just getting used to the new normal.
Yeah, it's absolutely not. I can't wait to see what it looks like, but I'm with you. I don't know how I'll feel when I see it.
Anxiety inducing a little bit going in. Yeah. It's uncomfortable.
You just wonder about, I understand with the Rose Bowl, they're going to do playoff things. So it'll never be Pac-12 versus Big Ten, but you have to assume there's no tie-ins anymore.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Which is crazy to me.
Yeah.
No tie-ins, no Rose Bowl tradition. No, we have taken everything and just shaken it up in a tornado. It says, here's a different product. Hope you guys like it still.
Okay. Before I get out of here, I do want to let you know, I think that the Power 5, let's just say the top 50 teams in the country, they should have their own division. They need to break away. They need to do whatever they need to do. Let the G5 have their own playoff. Let it mirror the Power 5 in all ways. Give them bowl games where the Power 5's playing in the Rose, the Sugar, the Orange. How about the G5 playing the Texas Bowl and the Music City Bowl?
The Alamo.
The Alamo Bowl, where they would have never gotten into before. Let them mirror that. Let them have their own championship and take away that G5 championship into the Power 5 group.
Perfect sense. Love it. Mm-hmm. Absolutely makes perfect sense to me. And I think people would watch it. There'd be an interest in it.
I watched the FCS championship.
Yeah, it would make money.
Yeah. And you can have it in NFL stadiums because it's like, the Texas Bowl, the Music City Bowl. Those are decent sized NFL type stadiums. Maybe you're playing at the Duke's Mayo Bowl where, you rotate that back and forth. Less people are opting out of bowl games. Attendance is going to go up. That's how you fix that.
That's make them matter again.
Yeah, the 32 teams, if you go 16-16 in those bowl games. And all of a sudden, you're not really worried about the Bahamas Bowl, so what about that? But once you hit into what I call bowl week, and if you're my age, you know what I'm talking about when I say that, those games get to matter again. And you're doing it in a playoff system, and all of this would work and kind of be fixed. I think that's
I think it makes sense because it doesn't matter now. The bowl games are irrelevant. I call them wallpaper. They're just kind of on. They're on during the holiday season. It's like a Yule log. They don't matter. You're not watching it intently. And that, to me, we got to change. We've ruined that.
Yeah. And this is what you can do. Like,
it's a good idea.
December the 10th is the first round of games in the G5 tournament. The next week is the first round of games in the Power 5 tournament.
Sure.
The next week, so it's a 2-week break, and you're doing one off and this alternating. You got football for like 8 more weeks of the season that is meaningful.
Yeah, makes sense.
Oh, I don't know.
I'm with it.
Yeah, I guess, that Liberty Bowl bid for the SEC, they don't want to give that up, you know.
Come on.
Yeah.
They'll be fine without it.
Yeah. Everything needs to make a little bit of sense, people. I mean, there's a chance right now.
Never does. It's the damnedest thing. Because people are so greedy.
In 1990, I was 14 years old, and I was a huge football fan. I think it was 90. It might have been 91. But you're sitting there, and at the end of the season, they play the whole thing. And Ole Miss was pretty good, but not really good. But I think they went to the Gator Bowl and got bull rushed by Michigan that year. But that was the year when I started paying attention because Ole Miss had a decent team. And you look up there, and it's like, okay, who won the championship this year? And basically the answer was, I don't know.
Yeah.
I think Washington and Georgia Tech or Georgia Tech and Colorado, it was all split and nobody could agree on anything.
Nebraska, Michigan, and sure.
Yeah. That was my introduction
to
all of this. And that is what I want to avoid. I think it needs to be as clear as possible. And I think this is the way forward. I just do.
I do too. And I'm with you. If we can avoid split championships at all costs ever again, That was weird. It was very confusing as a child. So you're like, Colorado and Georgia Tech are both the champion. Why don't they just play? Right? Like it just made no sense.
Oh
Why
yeah,
don't
and
they just go play?
and you would suggest that, and then
Yeah.
somebody, no, we can't do that.
Yeah.
And nobody could tell you why.
Tell you why.
Yeah,
Tradition.
but no, we can't do that. It was kind of
Yeah.
like that South Park episode where the priests are,
Yes. Rabble.
yeah, it's just, you're like, what's going on? And then we get to the BCS to where there's actually a championship game.
Yeah.
And people forget before the BCS was the Bowl Alliance, and people fought the BCS. Literally
Tooth and nail.
fought. Yeah. And then
People
that goes
don't like
to
change, Steve.
Yeah,
They don't like change, buddy.
Yeah. And now with
Sometimes it's good for
everything
us.
changing, I think this is the chance for everybody to go all in because there's so much going on. Get as much through as you can.
Yeah, it's time to make it make sense. And yeah, this is the time. This is the time to get it done.
All right. Before I get out of here, are you buying NCAA 25?
I'm not. Well, you know what? I take that back. I'll probably buy it for Switch. I don't have the modern stuff. I just have the Nintendo Switch. And I use it on occasion, really, and only I use it for FIFA. But I think probably for Switch, but not, I just stopped buying the systems because I just ran out of time.
Yeah, and it's gotten to the point like I have an Xbox One S or whatever it's called, whatever the latest and the greatest is.
Like
but I just use that for Major League Baseball to show. I mean, that's literally the only game that I play on there.
Yeah, I play FIFA and that's it.
Yeah.
So
by the way, Tim Elko's starting for the White Sox today.
That's pretty exciting.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah. DH and batting fifth.
Yeah, let's go.
We'll see. I'm just glad Cactus League has started. Yeah. Detroit doesn't start until tomorrow. Huh?
Did you go to a Tigers? Is that what I see on your head?
Yes. Yeah, I will. My first game that I'm going to see is Monday against the Astros. I've got tickets to 5 games of the spring.
Is that close to where you live?
15 minutes.
Oh, that's awesome. How good is that?
Yeah, it's amazing.
It's fantastic.
That's how I became a lifelong Tigers fan.
Yeah, that's pretty sweet, dude.
Yeah.
I love that.
So yeah, I'll get to see like all sorts of different prospects and all that.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Like Max Clark's in the camp, so I'll get to see him take some cuts. Yeah, should be good.
That's awesome.
Well, anyway, thanks again for making the Locked On Ole Miss podcast your first listen every day. We're free and available wherever you get your podcast, including YouTube. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Chris Childers from the Full Ride, from the Backstretch Radio. Is that what it was?
Backstretch Banner, a NASCAR radio.
Backstretch Banner. Yeah, NASCAR radio. Check that out. You can also watch it on
Racing
Sling.
America, 9 o'clock on Sling and Tubi and Vizio and all that stuff.
It's just good stuff. You should go check it out. Anyway, Chris, thank you so much for stopping by, and we'll talk to you next time, buddy.
Thank you, sir. Hotty toddy. Appreciate it.